real-time Pokémon Legends game, a new Warhammer campaign world, and Capcom planting its flag on top of the world with Monster Hunter Wilds are just a few things to look forward to in this episode of the RPG Workshop Newscast for March 2nd through March 15th, 2025. Welcome to the RPG Workshop Newscast. I'm your host, David Montgomery Blake. This newscast is for March 2nd through the 15th, 2025. I record and edit on Wednesdays, so there may be a little bit that's shifted into next week by the end of the week when I post this. I try and post it on Saturday mornings. I also wanted to mention that a team I work with called Mechanical Moonworks will be at the Game Developers Conference from next week from March 17th through the 21st. They'll be in booth P3031 in the GDC Play section of the expo floor, showing off a game we've been working on for a while. I will sadly not be in attendance this year, but if you're at the conference, stop by and check out our game. I can't say much about it yet because the conference is our official unveiling. So anyway, let's get on with the news. Digital RPG News. Moondrift Memory, Prologue, makes use of Pathfinder 2nd Edition mechanics. Moondrift Memory Prologue is a new game that uses the Pathfinder 2nd Edition mechanics, but unlike the Kingmaker games, will take place in its own world. The Kickstarter will be launching in mid-March. It will, however, be using the same engine as the Kingmaker titles. So if you really enjoyed those like I did, you should be in for a treat. Check it out in the show notes. Fable has been delayed until 2026. I'm sure that no one is surprised by this. Fable seems to keep getting delayed a little bit here and there as they keep making adjustments to it. Playground Games have announced that Fable will be delayed until 2026, once again, to make the best game possible. Pokémon Legends ZA. Pokémon Legends ZA was announced during the Pokémon Select event, and the trailer showed off real-time battles as well as the ability to navigate rooftops. It's no Assassin's Creed, but it does look pretty fun. Monaco II announced. Monaco is a great game from Pocket Watch Games, and Monaco II is more of the same heist action ramped up to 11. Plus, Andy Schatz, the founder of Pocket Watch Games, is a great guy with impeccable game design skills. There's a reason the first game was heralded as the best co-op heist game ever. Dragon Age Veilguard is a monthly game for March on PlayStation Plus. I'm pretty excited by this, even though I do not have a ton of time to play games right now. But I really wanted to pick it up, and now I can play it on my PS5. Sonic Colors Ultimate and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga Collection, are also available right now on PlayStation Plus. Evil Dungeon 3 is released for the Commodore 64. Shout out to Indie Retro News for this one. From the game information, Evil Dungeon 3, Curse of the Sorcerer, is a sequel to Evil Dungeon 2, also for the Commodore 64, by Gregor Schillinger. Ulrich and Valeria are on their way to the Academy of Magic Arts, but the Academy has been cursed by a cruel necromancer. This time, it's up to our young sorceress Valeria to master this quest. New Ultima-Style RPG for the Commodore 64. Sarah Jane Avery, the powerhouse behind Zeta Wing series and the Briley Witch Chronicles, is making a role-playing game inspired by the classic Ultima series. It's a party-based RPG named Kouyate, and I'm probably just messing that up, but Kouyate. Check out the article down in the show notes from Time Extension. BlizzCon is coming back in 2026. BlizzCon is reviving their annual convention. Blizzard is reviving their annual convention, BlizzCon, in 2026. It will take place September 12th and 13th at the Anaheim Convention Center. It is the first BlizzCon since 2023 and also the first since Microsoft acquired the company. Microsoft supposedly targeting handheld market this year. Now this is kind of a cool one. Microsoft has been flirting with the idea of bringing out a handheld for a while, but it's looking more and more official. It's still in the rumor stages though, so take it with a grain of salt. Right now there's not a lot of information, but what there is posted on Windows Central. A look at Backworld. Backworld has been in development since 2022 and combines the internet phenomenon of creepypasta with the feel of a Mother or Earthbound game. It is pretty glorious to behold and looks like a ton of fun. The art style alone is pretty amazing. Monster Patch looks like a cross between Stardew Valley and Pokémon. Monster Patch looks gorgeous. It appears to be a pleasant farming management sim like Stardew Valley, but it's also combined with the monster hunting action of Pokemon. It really nails the look and feel of the Game Boy Color as well. And it also expands the gameplay in town building and social links like you get with Pokemon and Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley. So it looks pretty cool. Tabletop RPG news. I wish I had more tabletop RPG news for this period, but it's been pretty light on most of the sources I regularly check. Still, there's a couple of stories you might find interesting. But first off, some sad news. Ernie Gygax has passed away. Ernie Gygax, the son of Dungeons & Dragons co-founder Gary Gygax, has passed away. He was known for creating the first Magic user character, Tensor, as well as the number of rules added to the game throughout its life under TSR. Cubicle 7 announces a new Horus Heresy RPG for Warhammer. The new Horus Heresy RPG takes place during the Civil War of the Imperium of Man. The players will manage two characters, interestingly enough, a Space Marine and another character with a special occupation. It's set to release in 2026. Potato Head Beholder is teased by WizKids. Okay, this is just too cool. It's a beholder, normal, D&D beholder, big eye, lots of tentacles with eyes on them, and a big old mouth ready to eat you. But it's designed around the Mr. Potato Head concept. So you got to figure out where to put the eyes and arms, etc. to make this Eldritch Terror your own. So damn cool. DriveThruRPG print-on-demand prices going up in the US. DriveThruRPG's print-on-demand prices are going up by as much as 50% on some products in the United States, while similar products in the UK will be seeing a minor price drop. Sorry, I almost said major there, and yeah, it's not that big of a price drop, but there are some drops in the UK, so that's nice. RPGs for Accessible Gaming Bundle on itch.io. The RPGs for Accessible Gaming Bundle on itch.io is currently available and running through March 22nd. There are a number of excellent tabletop RPGs in the bundle, and it goes to an excellent cause. They want to create Braille dice for sight-impaired players. As of this recording, they are at $18,000 of their $30,000 funding goal. Owlmanac is a bright light in the shadow dark world. If you're a fan of owls and bird puns, but like your coffee dark with a hint of Eldritch Terror, Owlmanac may be just the game for you. It extends the Shadow Dark rules with a series of owl-based classes like the Owlchemist. It also includes chapters on Shadow Pork, Shadow Bark, and Shadow Duck to provide even more pun-based silliness into the mix. But it's not all just pun and games. there's a ton of meat to the classes added as well. Game development news. Daily Deals program updated on Steam. Now this is more for developers, but this was kind of cool. The Daily Deals program has added new metrics as well as 2 more game slots. This means there will be 6 daily games available rather than the previous 4. So that gets more games from AAA and indie developers in front of people on Steam in a daily basis. And that's always a good thing. Discoverability is so difficult right now in pretty much any game store, and Steam is one of the biggest, and finding games, it can be a nightmare. And if you make a game, having other people find it without you directly linking and pointing them directly to it, that's very, very difficult. So this is the kind of thing that gets more games in front of players. And that's, of course, what you want as a game developer. Which embeds first-party partner Steam elements into its dashboard. Now, I thought this was interesting because this is the first time that Twitch has put a third party into its dashboard. And so they're working with Steam Elements. And Steam Elements is a performance-based stream advertising company, I believe. And it was kind of unclear on exactly what they do. And when I looked up their stuff, it was a lot of marketing speak more than this is exactly what we do. But it seems like it could be really good for all of the top tier streamers currently, because it advertises all of the top tier streamers that are streaming with the same tags, I'm guessing tag base, that you're already viewing. Unfortunately, oftentimes these schemes don't work as well as we would like, because often if you are already streaming content that you like and you are very, very specific about drilling down into, oh yes, I like this very specific streamer because they cover these things, you probably have already seen and know about all of the top streamers out there. So you're going to get recommendations for things that you already know about and may or may not actually want to go watch. So it's good for the people that are currently on top because they stay on top, because they're the ones that are constantly being advertised, since it's based on performance. And that usually comes down to number of streams. And there's probably a whole lot of performance factors on Twitch, whether it be the amount of raw streams that they've done, the amount of viewers, the amount of interaction. Are people liking and commenting? Are they also commenting back to their viewers? So there's probably a lot of things going on there behind the scenes, but I'm kind of skeptical right now until I actually see it in production, because a lot of what these types of programs have done in the past, whether it's been on websites or streams or storefronts, is that you often start getting the same group of popular things, whether or not you need or want them. And that's what I'm worried about, because this is a hard nut to crack, and they've been trying to do it since the 90s with ad streaming or with ad serving. And anyone who has ever used the internet knows that ad service is really, really, really poor when it comes to targeting us. You'll go out and you'll buy like a toilet seat on Amazon because your toilet seat broke and you really need it. And then for the next 6 weeks, all you're seeing on every website you visit is, hey, do you want to be a toilet seat collector? Come on, here you go. We've got toilet seats, toilet seats, toilet seats. And yeah, it's really hard not to crack. So anyway, I'll get off that high horse and go on with the news. Electronic Arts releases the source code to Command & Conquer games under the GNU public license. So Electronic Arts just released the source code to several Command & Conquer games under the GPL. So this is really cool. Command & Conquer Red Alert, Command & Conquer Renegade, and the remasters of the original 2 games have all been released under the GPL. So you can go in, you can look at the source code, you can change the games, you can add to them, you can remaster them, you can re-release them. Because it's the GPL, all of your source code will also have to be released. But it's a really, really cool thing for Command & Conquer enthusiasts that have been trying to get the CNC games onto, say, new systems, new operating systems. Or upgrade them to 4K or 8K graphics or across widescreen monitors. Any of the number of issues that come with the more modern systems and the support that these original games never had, because at the time we didn't even imagine that this was possible. Acclaim is resurrected to support indies and classic franchises. A group of industry veterans have secured the name and plan on publishing indie titles, as well as working to secure the rights to the Acclaim library of intellectual property. Now, this might be difficult because many of the properties were sold off in a fire sale many years ago to try and keep it afloat, and it did not stay afloat. So a lot of the original Acclaim licenses are now with other companies, and it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to get them back, because some of the franchises like Mortal Kombat, for example, no one's going to give that up right now. That makes bank. So most likely we won't see the big franchises, but we might see a lot of their smaller ones come back, which will be a great thing. I just am excited because the Acclaim name is back in the game. Jam City sells Ludia Game Studio. Ludia Game Studio, the developers of several recent mobile Jurassic Park games, is being sold to a consortium of Canadian institutional investors, which I'm sure will go very well for the staff in about 6 months. I just hope I'm wrong. But every time we see one of these these investment groups come in and buy a game studio, 6 months to a year later, everyone in the studio gets laid off and they keep their properties and they transfer them to another studio that they just bought. And this just keeps going on, and we get more and more out-of-work game developers, which is a horrible, horrible thing for our industry. In interesting marketing news, Activision Blizzard is using generative AI to create ads for games that do not exist. Now, this isn't necessarily RPG focused, but a lot of the game development stuff often isn't. But I just thought it was interesting because they're creating ads for games that do not exist, or sequels to games that do not exist, or remasters to gauge people's interest. So what you would see is you would see an ad for an Activision game that doesn't exist, that you're just like, oh damn, I forgot that they even made that. I love that game. So you click on it and it takes you to a web page, and the web page will say, this game doesn't exist, but please fill out this survey to tell us why you clicked on this link and gauge their interest, and hopefully it'll get made in the future. So it takes a level of engagement more than a normal ad, but it's also something that, game companies have been trying to do this with like surveys and stuff, and some of them have been successful. Like when Square would say, "Hey, why don't you tell us about what you like or don't like about triangle strategy?" And we're still in development, so hey, let us see what we can do and what you like, what you don't. Give us feedback, and they took a lot of that feedback. And players, if you give them an opportunity, love to give feedback as long as that feedback seems to be noticed in some way. One of the problems with early adopter, or not early adopters, but early access games on Steam is sometimes companies use it as sort of a pre-sale. And even though they're not supposed to, that's against the Steam rules, whatnot, they still use it that way. And then people will be like, all right, so I downloaded the demo, or I downloaded the first level, or whatever's included, and man, I did not like this was cool, but this, that sucked. Is there any way that I can get feedback? And then like just dead silence on their forums because they're not actually garnering feedback. They just wanted that money to be able to continue development to hopefully be able to release the game. And that's a problem. So even though this takes another level of engagement, by creating, ads for games that don't exist, and probably feeding it in like, here's a bunch of art from all of our catalog of games. Create the idea of ads that are the idea of sequels and remasters, and then it just starts pumping out stuff, and then it tricks people into going to fill out a survey. I would kind of be pissed off if I did this, because when I see something and I get excited about it, and then they're like, haha, this doesn't exist, psych. But hey, why don't you fill out a survey about it? Yeah, that kind of pisses me off. So, but it's an interesting marketing tool, and it'll be interesting to see how companies continue to use generative AI to do things like this going forward. Once Rainbreaker is released, Studio Fizbin will close its doors. After Thunderfall severely reduced staff, Studio Fizbin was looking for a way to keep the lights on after the release of Rainbreaker. However, they did not find a way to do that, and so they're going to close their doors after the release of the game, which is really sad for anyone that buys the game and then, bugs need to be fixed, things like that. I'm sure that Thunderfall will have some small team that will do minor tweaks and fixes to try and stop crash level bugs, just because they've already invested money in this game and Studio Fizbin. But it also seems to be a good way to, tank your game's sales before you actually even release it by saying, yep, we're done. Sorry, we're closing the studio, but we've also fulfilled our promise to our publisher to release the game. But they're going to have to take over getting any fixes or updates to the game. Plus, you'll never see a sequel unless they hire another studio to do it. And who knows how that will go. So yeah, it's just kind of a sad state of affairs for Studio Fizbin. Secret Mode splits from Sumo Group to become an independent publisher. Now, with all the bad news that I've given in recent weeks on Sumo Group, in terms of layoffs, there is hope on the horizon, at least for Secret Mode. But even that hope was short-lived, since they had to lay off a number of people to maintain their independence, keep the lights on until publishing contracts are signed. It was sold to Emona Capital, to keep the studio breathing for the time being. Kenji Ozawa has established Studio Sasenqua and is self-funding the venture. Wow, Studio Sasenqua is really hard for me to say. So Kenji Ozawa was the co-director behind Visions of Mana, which I really enjoyed. A lot of people were hit or miss on it, but I thought it was a lot of fun. But Aoka Studios were closed down after its release, and Ozawa has stated that by self-funding the studio, he is the one who will assume any project failure going forward with the projects that the studio creates. And he bemoaned how studios put too much pressure on individual developers rather than mismanagement when products fail. Now, I kind of love this because he is taking accountability and responsibility for his studio and the products that are going to be created and released through his studio. So literally the buck stops with him in this venture. It'll be interesting to see what they release in the future. Monster Hunter Wilds sells 8 million units in 3 days. It shouldn't exactly be news because it was one of the most anticipated titles of the year, but it has exceeded expectations in early sales. It's also skyrocketed to the top of all-time Capcom sales records. So Capcom is very, very happy, which also leads me to the next story. Capcom promotes Monster Hunter producer to Chief Product Officer for all development. When you have a proven franchise that hits its targets time after time and often exceeds them, you have to do something. And Capcom has decided to promote Ryozo Sujimoto to the Chief Product Officer. And I am sure that I just slaughtered his name and I am so sorry. French Apex Legends voice cast refuses contracts because of AI clause. Now, would you sign a contract that has an AI training clause? Because that's what the cast of Apex Legends in France were running into. And they are rightfully worried that it would lead to their contracts not being renewed in the future as the studio decides to replace them with AI-generated voices of their own voice samples. So they would basically be signing themselves out of a job. So who knows what will happen going forward with this? But I am 100% behind the French Apex Legends voice cast for this. Callisto Protocol developer Striking Distance lays off more developers. Yeah, always sad news when it comes to talking about the game development world. Main reasoning given for this layoff is that they need to stay operational and agile, just like every other company says when they do mass layoffs. There are no solid numbers, but employees have mentioned that most of the dev staff have been laid off. Sony cutting jobs at Visual Arts and Malaysia support studios. Once again, Sony has cut a number of jobs across their global workforce. Former employees from Visual Arts and the Malaysia support studios have been talking about the layoffs of their team on LinkedIn. Tim Curry, writer on Legacy of Kain, has passed away. Tim Curry, the marketing manager and writer on Legacy of Kain and the Gygax series, has passed away after a prolonged illness. Been Dead, a 19-year-old browser game taken offline by UK's online safety law. Been Dead has been running for nearly 20 years, but will close down because of a child protection law in the UK. The law states, platforms will be required to prevent children from accessing harmful and age-inappropriate content and provide parents and children with clear and accessible ways to report problems online when they do arise. For small developers without a large amount of moderation resources and money, it is untenable to continue production and support of some games, especially with community-centered web-based ones like this. Respawn cancels another game and lays off more staff. Respawn has laid off more staff, but has not mentioned how many jobs were affected. They did say it was a small layoff. In addition to the layoff, they have also canceled another unannounced game that was in development. What I'm playing. I'm burnt out on grinding in both Star Ocean, Second Story R, and Dragon Quest III. I've mentioned that a couple of times for the last couple of episodes, and I am still just burnt out in the grind. So I put them on hold for a little bit. Makes me sad because I'm at the very end of them for the most part, or at least in the last final chapter of them. I did download Dragon Age the Veilguard so I can give it a whirl, but I haven't done much other than watch the intro and create a character. So I haven't had a chance to really give it a go other than running through the introduction and getting caught up on everything. I kind of wish I still had my Dragon Age Inquisition character, but I gave up a long time ago on getting another Dragon Age, especially after all the drama and changes over the last decade in production of this one. I haven't had a lot of time to play this week, but I did pick up Tunic as well on the California Fire Relief Bundle pack at itch.io. I've been wanting to play it for some time and have really been enjoying it no matter how little I've had a chance to play. Otherwise, I've been perfecting my really horrible Tekken 8 skills since I can jump in, fight a few fights, and bounce before heading off to work at 6 a.m. Featured game. Dragon Quest IX, Sentinels of the Starry Skies, is a game that will most likely always exist on the Nintendo DS and not be ported, at least not without extensive changes to other systems. The game relies heavily on dual screens, even though some games like Etrian Odyssey have seen re-releases on the Switch between the disbanded network play and much of the stylus-based interactions would be lost in translation since it leans so heavily into the Nintendo DS features. But it is a shame that so few people will be able to experience this going forward. It's one of my favorites in the series. The main character is a former Celestrian, an angel, who ends up trapped in the mortal plane where they are duty-bound to protect. They must travel the world and restore the Celestrian Order, the Starflight Express, and the World Tree. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and there's a magical train called the Starflight Express, presumably because Andrew Lloyd Webber would have sued if they'd called it the Starlight Express. The game still plays really well, even if the multiplayer elements are no longer available. I just wish it could be more easily ported to modern console to play. Featured tutorial. I am a sucker for really impressive visual effects. And one of the things I love to see in games, whether they are RPGs or fighting games or what have you, are impact frames. If you haven't heard of them or are unsure exactly what they are, let me try and break it down for you a little bit. Don't worry, my explanation is just scratching the surface. The tutorials I'm linking to in After Effects and Unreal Engine will break it down into workable steps. I also added an explainer video from Howard Wimshurst on how to impact frames work in animation to make it particularly impactful. An impact frame is a high contrast frame that is inserted at the point of contact. So right when the punch hits, for example. It is often used in anime when a punch lands or something explosive happens. By inserting the frame, it provides a visual cue to the brain that something big has just occurred. Because of this, though, it can be less impactful over time if it is used for every punch instead of the final blow. Otherwise, it just looks like a normal hit and loses its specialness. That's it for this episode of the RPG Workshop Newscast. Remember to follow us on all of the social media sites like Twitter or X, I guess, and Facebook and Instagram and Blue Sky. We're everywhere, as well as making sure to like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here, the newscast. And remember, you can also email contact@rpgworkshop.com with any questions or comments that you have, or if you have any stories about RPGs that are coming out, if you're about to release something really, really cool, or if you have a great plugin for something like RPG Maker or Unity that will make RPG development so much easier for the masses, please let me know and I'll include that in the show. Now, also, you can find the full show notes at rpgworkshop.com. There's a link down below. It's the first link in the show notes because the show notes get very, very long, and a lot of the different RSS feeds that post to different podcasting platforms require much shorter show notes, and I include a lot of links. So you can find the full show notes at rpgworkshop.com. Until next time, keep playing and making the RPGs you love.